Hey Hollywood, can we have some movies that don't have slaves in them? Coming to paperback and e-readers this March, John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant cover editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose this March. One of my viewers asked me to take a look at the trailer for the upcoming movie Antebellum. And after taking a critical examination of that trailer and reading the premise for Antebellum, I had to shake my head. Now, your Antebellum proposes to do something new with the slave movie genre by making it look like some sort of horror movie. And according to the premise for Antebellum, it's supposed to be about a best-selling author in modern times who finds herself in a horrifying reality and must figure out the mystery behind what took her back to this horrifying reality before it's too late. Now, this best-selling author in modern times is taken back to the slave period of the antebellum South, which is the period before the Civil War. Now, that's very horrifying for a black person to be in, but it is just disturbing for a black man like myself to watch. And when I look at this film, I see that your Hollywood just seems to get some sort of pleasure out of making these slave movies and seeing black people with their eyes being bugged out and wide open in terror. So they're getting some sort of pleasure out of making these kind of films, and they're getting entertained behind the scenes by seeing black people in the role of a slave. So I'm not a fan of these movies that keep coming out from Hollywood. I mean, we just had Harriet just a couple of months ago come out at the theaters, and that movie was a historically inaccurate minstrel show designed to give pleasure to white racists who got to see your Harriet Tubman's legend maligned. And then here we have in 2020 in the spring Antebellum coming out, giving us a story of a black person who is successful being taken back to slavery. And I really don't like the message that is presented in this film, because the whole idea is about destroying a successful black person and bringing them back down to the level of a slave. That is the message that is presented between the lines of this movie, and that's what I believe many in Hollywood want to do regarding the image of black successful people. Is they want to take the image of black successful people and then bring them back down to the level of a slave, and they want to break a black person down back to the level of a slave. And I just can't get with that, because this is another insidious way that your white supremacist Hollywood goes out of its way to degrade the black image and degrade the image of black people, so they can say that, oh, this is some sort of horror movie, but in actuality, that's the passive way. But aggressively, they get their jollies by seeing another black person in another slave movie being whipped, being humiliated, being sexually violated, being degraded. And this is how they get their entertainment behind the scenes of this movie, between the lines of this story. So I'm not a fan of this movie, and I would not even recommend you go see this movie, because what I saw in that trailer was absolutely disgusting, and the premise for this movie was one I am not a fan of, because I don't make slavery as something that you make a horror movie out of. The horror of slavery is not something that I would see as some sort of entertainment, and I find it insulting that Hollywood continues to just keep pumping out slave movie after slave movie after slave movie, and we rarely get any sort of movies that present us with a balanced, humanized image of black people and show us balanced, humanized stories about black people like the ones I produce on the SJS Direct imprint. It seems like either we get these slave movies where we get to see black people being degraded by white people, or we get these Tyler Perry minstrel shows where, like, you're A Fall from Grace, where we see black people degraded by other black people. And that's the shame of Hollywood these days, is that we don't get to see any sort of middle of the road where we get to see, some black people being intelligent, being professional, having a sense, presenting us with some humor and some laughs, where we're laughing at a situation and not at people, or a intense drama that shows us, life that black people are living, and not something that's set during a civil rights period where it's always about the black person's race, like the upcoming Jamie Foxx movie. Again, it seems like Hollywood only has like a handful of movies that it can make regarding the black experience, and those experiences are extremely limited. Again, either it's some sort of slave movie like Harriet or this Antebellum, or it's some sort of Tyler Perry ghetto drama, or it's some sort of black historical civil rights thing or some court thing like Jamie Foxx is in, but we don't get any stories these days of regular brothers and sisters out here like I produce on the SJS Direct imprint in books like A Recipe for Success or All About Maryland or The Thetas, which was about a sorority. We don't get any stories about black people as people. All we get are the same stereotypes repackaged and sold in brand new boxes in order to entertain white folks, but not give us a balanced, humanized story that shows us the black experience on film. And I'm really getting tired of these kind of movies like Antebellum, because I see what the message is behind the scenes of this type of film, just like I saw what was going on behind the scenes with Harriet. This film was not about, let's make a horror movie. This was a movie about us making a movie that it makes so that you can get your jollies on about slavery while saying that you're making a horror movie. And it's all about entertaining white racists and giving them their pleasures at seeing a black person degraded and then calling it a horror movie, which is, again, another insult to black people, because, again, it seems like we don't get much variety when it comes down to these films, and we don't get much diversity as related to thought. It seems like, again, all we get are the same movies over and over again. And when I look at this Antebellum is just another one of these slave movies. And I'd like to think we could be far more creative as related to our image in film than having to see just another slave movie. It doesn't matter what genre it's in. I'm just tired of slave movies, and I'm tired of the depiction of black people as slaves, because I know we can be much better than slaves. And when I write stories, I don't have us depicted as slaves in my stories. So if I can do this on an indie publishing imprint, then you could think a multi-billion-dollar institution like Hollywood could go out here and find some original and unique stories that give us balanced, humanized images of black people enjoying black life and enjoying different parts of the black experience, and give us a richer and more diverse picture of black culture than what we're getting from Hollywood today. If you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction featuring numerous stories about the African American experience, like A Recipe for Success, which is about two black-owned businesses getting ready to do a business deal, All About Maryland, about a faded former black teen sitcom star, The Temptation of John Haynes, which is action-packed African American fantasy, The Thetas, which is about African American sorority girls, and Spinsterella and the Spinsterella trilogy, which is about African Americans in the goth subculture, and books like my ISIS series and E-Steam series and John Haynes series, which feature great African American fantasy. You can pick up all of those books in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com right now by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to help me make more videos and be able to create more positive African American fiction, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers this April, ISIS, the main event. It's carnage inside of a steel cage as the goddess next door steps in the squared circle against the beast from the falls in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, the main event this April.